Greetings, greenhouse people. It's time for another episode of Tech on Demand brought to you by Grower Talks magazine. If you don't receive Grower Talks and Green Profit every month, head over to growertalks.com and subscribe. We've been bringing news and information to the industry for more than 75 years, so if you're not a subscriber, it is about time. And speaking of subscribing, be sure to subscribe to the Tech on Demand podcast on your favorite podcast app. Once you subscribe, you'll never miss an episode. I'm your host, Bill Calkins, and the goal of this episode is to encourage you to attend the 2026 AmericanHort's Plug-in Cutting Conference. It's going to be held in Philadelphia from September 14th to 16th this year. The Plug-in Cutting Conference is a young plant, grower-focused educational event that incorporates experiential production tours, a variety of educational session formats, a trade show, and truly provides insights into cutting-edge research and technology. But it's much more than that. I've attended multiple plug-in cutting conferences in the past and always leave with new ideas, and equally, or maybe more importantly, new contacts and connections. I could go on and on about the conference, but I figured I'd reach out to Rachel Rawls, the educational program manager at AmericanHort's, because she knows everything about the conference and why each part of the event was planned. Like all of AmericanHort's conferences, a lot of strategy went into lining up all the elements of this year's event, and hearing from Rachel about what attendees can expect to learn and take back to their greenhouse operations was really interesting. We covered a lot, and you'll want to stick around to the very end because Rachel shares her number one takeaway she hopes inspires everyone at the event. Before we start, here's a little bit about my guest. Rachel Rawls is an education program manager at AmericanHort's, where she supports educational programming for professionals across the horticulture industry. She brings a background in horticulture and extension education. Rachel holds a Bachelor of Science in Horticulture and a Master's in Agricultural Leadership from the University of Georgia. Her work focuses on connecting industry professionals with practical education, expert insights, and resources that support growth across the green industry. Outside of work, you can find her chasing two very fast toddlers and browsing dessert recipes to try. Before nap time at Rachel's house is over, we had better get this started. Rachel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Bill. Happy to be here.
So as we heard in your bio, you are an integral part of AmericanHort's conference programming, and with a background in extension, I know you have a really good handle on how growers and other members of the industry learn best, which is why I'm really excited to pick your brain about one of my absolute favorite industry events, the Plug-in Cutting Conference. I think every year that the conference is held, I volunteer to cover it for the magazine, and I have for years. And then I also help represent Ball Seed and our technical team on site because I really do think the conference is that good. I really look forward to it. And from the education to networking, the tours, all the partner booths, it really is a good way to deep dive into what I consider a really specific and critical part of the plant supply chain. That's really enough out of me. I could go on and on about the conference. Rachel, are you ready to get into some questions and talk about what folks can expect for this year?
Yeah, Bill, I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, let's do it. So for growers who haven't attended before, what do you think makes the Plug-in Cutting Conference different from other industry events?
Yeah, so I think what makes this conference different is the really specific focus and the access that this conference provides. You know, it's designed specifically for greenhouse growers, propagators, and any production professionals working in young plant production. So the conversations that happen here get very practical very quickly. I would say, unlike any larger industry event where plugs and cuttings may be just one small piece of the program, this entire conference is built around, any challenges and opportunities in propagation and young plant production. You've got attendees that are surrounded by people who understand those same pressures. You've got crop timing and labor, rooting, pest prevention, automation, shrink, input costs, a ton of quality expectations. So, I think one of the other big differences is the amount of engagement that attendees get out of this conference. We've got very focused education, peer-to-peer learning. There is a trade show with approximately 50 exhibitors and our experiential production tour. So growers have a real opportunity to spend time with speakers and vendors and other growers.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really good high level sort of overview of the conference. You touched on so many things. I think that
Thank you.
that is what makes the conference so special. And you're right, it is a very specialized part of our industry. I think propagators, folks in young plant production tend to, it's just very specialized. There's such a big part of the supply chain early on. And with this event being so focused on young plant production, and you touched on a little bit of it already, but why is this segment of the market so important for growers that it gets its own conference? I mean, we don't have like a focus on, insect management conference. A lot of times that's weaved into different conferences. Why is this one so special that it gets its own conference?
Yeah, great question. I would say that, I think so much about crop success is determined at the very beginning. So the health of all of these young plants really sets the foundation for everything that happens later, including, things like finish time and uniformity, any labor needs, inputs, profitability. So, when something goes wrong early, follow that crop all the way through production, as you know. And so I think when growers get the young plant stage right, they're setting themselves up for better turns, better crop quality, and just any, fewer corrections later on down the road. It's also one of the most technical areas of greenhouse production, I think. We'll talk about this later on, but goodness gracious, we have one session that is literally just about the first 7 days of geraniums, So you've got growers who, they're managing small plants, tight schedules and sensitive environments. That's a lot of variables at one time. And so I think that's why it deserves really dedicated attention. This conference, it gives the industry a place to focus deeply on the stage of production that has such a major impact on both plant performance and business performance as well.
Yeah, and you're right. I think that there's a handful of stages of young plant production, but they're all compressed into a pretty short timeline where a lot can go wrong, and there's a lot of dollars per square foot riding on this stage of production. Thank you for explaining that, and I agree. It definitely needs its own conference, and that's probably why we're encouraging everyone to come to Philadelphia in September. So, you mentioned the educational sessions and how important they are and how focused they can be, but can you walk us through some of the tracks or some of the sessions and how, I guess, from a programming perspective, how they're structured to engage and send attendees away with like practical, lessons that they can take back to their greenhouse?
Yeah. So our education it's built around real decisions that growers are making in young plant production. Technical production knowledge is still at the core of this conference. But this year's program also recognizes that growers have to think holistically about the business of production as well. So we have sessions that are focused on production growing practices, plant health and diagnostics, research and applied science, technology and automation, sustainability and resource management, and business operations. So attendees will get to see that help that gets them to grow better crops, but also topics that help them evaluate things like labor, inputs, cost, efficiency. And so this structure is very intentional. A grower might come for a session on something like irrigation or crop timing, but the key takeaway often connects back to a larger business question like, okay, how does this improve quality? How does this reduce your waste? How does this save on labor? How does this make the operation stronger?
And that's a really cool way to look at it, that whole business approach. And it's probably another reason why operations should consider bringing more than one person to the conference. I mean, you just listed like 10 different sort of broad subjects that all these educational sessions fit into, and it definitely sounds like a more than one person kind of conference.
It is.
So, and I know that just from attending in the past, there's peer-led discussions, but then grower panels. I mean, I personally love sitting in the audience and watching a panel because I think you can pick different things out of the way different people approach a topic. But talk a little bit about how this looks in practice at the Plug and Cutting Conference and why you think it's an effective way to deliver educational information.
Sure. And I'll make a little plug back to you. We've loved having you as part of those panels as well. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I would say, in practice, it means that we're really creating opportunities for growers to not only learn from technical experts, but of course from each other. That might happen in a grower panel or a peer-led discussion or during one of the production tours that we've got this year. So when attendees are walking through a facility, they're comparing notes in real time. I want to just tell you, this year we're adding skill stations at each of our tour stops, and that will make the hands-on learning even more practical. So these stations are designed to give attendees a closer look at specific production skills and techniques, such as the, fundamentals of dipping cuttings or practical scouting methods, and any other applied young plant production practices. I think that format, it works really well because growers value that real world experience. And there's a lot of trust when another grower or production professional says, hey, here's what we've tried. Here's what worked, here's what didn't, and here's what we would do differently next time. And so, when attendees compare that conversation with actually seeing or practicing a technique, that takeaway becomes so much more actionable. And, our goal is to create an environment where growers can ask those honest questions and compare approaches and leave with ideas that they can realistically adapt when they get home.
I like that. And growers will have those questions, and they do tend to ask those questions. A lot of times they do ask them of their peers, because that I'm 100% on board with the peer-to-peer discussion and learning in our industry. Growers trust growers, and that's really cool. So talking about these skill stations, who leads those? Like, who's in charge of a skill station at one of the tour stops? Is it
great question.
Is it like an academic, or is it a person from the greenhouse? Who's in charge of that?
It's going to be a huge mix of both. So I have been working very closely with Suzanne Wainwright Evans. She's, an industry consultant for us. Yep, the bug lady. She does an amazing job coordinating stuff like this. So, one exciting thing, this is in her backyard this year. And so she has, before we even confirmed all of these tour stops, she personally went to all of them, and talked with all of them and made sure that this would be a great fit for everyone. So, I work with people like her. She has this amazing arsenal of, industry suppliers and academics and, just like growers who are working in it every single day. And she just brings this massive team with her. She's got so many friends.
It's true. No, I love that Suzanne's involved when you talk about watching dipping cuttings or actually talking about scouting from on a hands-on approach or right there in the greenhouse. I think there's so much value to that. No, that's really, really cool. So thinking about, young plant production in 2026, what are some of the big challenges that these sessions are aiming to address? What are growers dealing with maybe that's changed over the years, or something new on the horizon that the educational sessions at this year's conference are looking to?
Yeah, great question. So we work really closely with our greenhouse community connectors as we're planning this. And so some of the things that they shared about, sessions that they want to see, challenges that they've had, it all really comes back to consistency, efficiency, and profitability. So you've got growers, they're being asked to produce these high quality young plants on really tight timelines, while of course managing labor challenges, which we know have all, been a struggle in the last few years, input cost, plant health, and then customer expectations. But this year's sessions are designed to really address both the crop side and the business side of those challenges, like I said. So what I like about this lineup is that it recognizes these issues are all connected. So plant health, that affects labor. Crop timing affects your profitability. Automation affects your workflow. Input decisions affect quality and cost. And so I really think the strongest operations are the ones that can look at both crop performance and business performance and see how those work best together.
Consistency, efficiency, profitability, that screams young plant production.
Yeah.
Like, if you miss on one of those three, you're kind of out of luck. So I like how you guys are tying that all together. And then I think that, this sort of demonstrates the power of American Hort as such a industry-wide organization that you can call on members and advisors and folks within the organization and leadership to come up with the right topics for a conference like this. That's really, really cool.
Yeah. Well, and they're the ones living it day in
Yep.
and day out. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
No, so true. All right. So understanding that technology and automation are huge themes in our industry in general. And I'm sure at a conference like Plug and Cutting, what kind of tools or innovations should attendees expect to see or learn about in Philadelphia this fall?
Yeah. So I think technology and automation is going to show up in a very practical way. Yeah, I think sometimes it's a scary topic to get into. You know, people hear automation and they think like, oh, it's got to be some like big picture innovation thing and, you know, millions of dollars and all of that. But not for us. We're going to be looking at tools and systems, processes that can just help growers solve real production challenges. I mean, it doesn't have to be some massive investment, you know? So attendees can expect to learn about automation in young plant production, ways to improve that workflow, tools that support crop timing and scheduling, and stuff like that, you know, ways that help you use data and metrics to make better decisions. And with the trade show, attendees also have that direct access to vendors who understand all of those challenges. And I think that's another big part of the value. You know, a grower can hear about an idea in a session and then they walk to the trade show. They have a deeper conversation with someone who may have a tool or a product or technology that actually helps address that issue. And, you know, I think the message here is that not every grower needs to automate everything. It's about helping growers identify that next practical step for their operation.
Yeah, and you talked about the process and the workflow, and with young plant production, I think automation is probably at a higher level than it is in other aspects of crop production. But yeah, you're right. It's the right thing for each business to consider what's going to work for them. And I've heard it said any number of times, a conveyor system is automation.
Yeah,
you know, it
of
doesn't
course.
have to be a $500,000 transplanter. It can be something as simple as just product movement and bringing the task to your labor force, things like that. So no, that's really cool. And I would imagine we'll see plenty of that in action in some of the production tours as well.
Oh, I bet.
So speaking of production tours, that was my segue. Do you like that? Because the tour's epic this year. It's one of the reasons I'm really looking forward to this conference. But tell the listeners a little bit about where the tour is headed and then the value of getting growers out of the classroom, out of a convention center, out of a conference room and into some real operations. We talked about it a little bit, but I know there's so much value in that. So where's the tour going and what are some of the benefits that folks are going to get from these production tours?
Yeah. So first of all, tours are my favorite part of every conference as well. You will definitely find me out of the convention center this year and sneaking away to one of the tour stops. But yeah, this production tour is one of the most valuable parts of the conference because, you know, it turns what could be a really passive experience into an applied learning opportunity. So our stops this year, they include Lucas Greenhouses, North Creek Nurseries, Star Roses and Plants, and Longwood Gardens. And I am so excited about all four of those stops. It's going
like
to be
a
great.
Mount Rushmore of East Coast.
I'm so excited.
Green industry stuff. I love it.
I'm so excited. You know, each of these stops gives attendees a real chance to see different production systems, different crops and workflows, technologies, and they see that decision making in action. And, you know, like I told you, this year, the tours are even more valuable because we're adding those skill stations at each tour stop. And so these stations, you know, like I told you, they're being designed by Suzanne and all of her trusted industry professionals. And, you know, those are the people who are seeing those real issues that growers face across the country. So they're bringing that practical how-to knowledge directly to the attendees on that tour. And so, you know, instead of only seeing like a greenhouse or hearing about a concept, our attendees are going to have opportunities to engage with specific production skills and techniques, you know, like I said, such as like dipping cuttings or scouting methods or anything else like a hands-on practice that supports scaling plant quality. So, you know, I think that combination is really powerful. Growers getting to see real operations, they ask those questions, comparing the notes with any of their peers, and then they learn those practical skills that they get to take back to their own teams.
Yeah, and I'm just going to repeat Lucas, North Creek, Star, in Longwood. Like that
Yep.
alone is a reason to head to the website and register right now.
I'll see you there.
Right. And then adding in the skill stations. I mean, everything we've talked about, this really
Yeah.
does sound awesome. And I'll admit something here in front of everybody. I have never been to Longwood, which is crazy.
Ooh.
In 25 years in the industry, I've never been to Longwood, and I'm so excited. I've
You're
been to
gonna
all
love
the
it.
others on the tour, just not there. So I'm so excited. And
Yeah, you're going to love it. I haven't been in a decade, so I'm excited to see any changes.
it's going to be so awesome. All right. So from a trade show to the production tours, this is a really hands-on event. You talked a little bit about just the opportunities for networking, the peer-to-peer potential of this. So let's talk a little bit about how folks can turn experiences like this into actionable improvements back at their greenhouse. What kind of advice do you have for folks, whether it's this conference or really any conference, but talking about how you can take what you learn at something like Plug and Cutting Conference and bring it back to your greenhouse?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a couple of things that I'd love to tell you about in this question. So, the hands-on pieces really help attendees connect those ideas to implementation. In a session, they can learn about a new approach on crop timing or costing or automation or whatever. In the trade show, that's where they can talk to those suppliers and explore any products or technologies that support those ideas. And then you've got the production tour, like we just talked about. And that's where they see those real operations putting systems and processes into practice. And so I think that combination helps growers leave with real specific next steps. So it might be a process to review, a metric that they want to start tracking, or a scouting technique that they want to improve, some sort of, this is huge, like sanitation practices that they want to revisit, or like we've talked about, a piece of technology that they want to evaluate. So our goal is not for attendees to go home and just change every single thing at once, right? The goal is for them to return with, a few targeted, realistic improvements that can make their operations stronger. And I want to make this plug, pun intended, I guess. Another big value this year is that registration to the conference includes access to our on-demand package of select sessions that will be recorded live at our conference. We will have 36 live sessions at the conference, and I believe 18 of those will be recorded. We're still deciding on which 18 those will be, but that means attendees can revisit those key takeaways after they're back at their operation. They can share those sessions with team members who couldn't attend and get to use that education as like an ongoing resource rather than just a one-time experience.
I love that. That is a great way to take it home with you. You literally take it home with you.
You literally take it home.
Sessions. Yeah, that's really, really cool. And I think that having a list and a few really actionable, like you said, realistic, tangible things you can work on will make any conference extremely valuable. And that's great. And hopefully you end up with a whole notebook full of things to work on over the next couple of years until you come back to the conference.
Yeah.
So there's also a Spanish language education track this year, and AmericanHort's been leading in Spanish language education for years, and I know it's nothing that's new to you guys, but talk a little bit about how this expands the audience and positively impacts our industry.
Yeah. I wish I could take any credit for that. I definitely don't have a Spanish language bone in my body, unfortunately. My teammate, Alejandra, has done a really great job leading this effort. She's done a great job, connecting us with, Spanish language presenters and growing that network. And so yeah, in the past, we've been able to offer just like a couple of sessions here or there. But yeah, this year we've got an entire session room dedicated from start to finish of the conference. This Spanish language sessions, I think they're really important. It's a really important addition, because it expands that access that we were talking about earlier to the technical and business education for more of the people who are directly involved in greenhouse production. So, many Spanish-speaking professionals are doing that critical work in propagation and young plant production. They're handling crops and implementing protocols or scouting or managing teams systems, and they're the ones making daily decisions that impact the quality of those young plants. And so, offering education in Spanish helps make sure that that knowledge reaches the people who can put it into practice. I
Right.
also think, it supports workforce development, which is a huge goal for American Hort. When businesses invest in their teams by giving them access to education in the language where they can learn most effectively, that benefits the employee, that benefits the operation, and then just the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
for me, I think this track, it really reflects what the conference is really about, making high value education more accessible and more useful to people doing the work. And if you haven't met her already, Bill, Alejandra will be at the conference with us. So
Cool.
excited to have another education team member there with me.
Definitely. That's awesome. And I mean, every week I get requests and our technical team at Ball for production content in Spanish. So I know how valuable this is. I know how many managers, are looking for content for themselves and for their teams. And this is a really big deal. So good job, American Hort, for doing this. That's really, really awesome. All right. If you had to sum it up, and I know this is going to be tough, but what's one thing that you hope every attendee brings back to their greenhouse after the Plug and Cutting conference this September? One thing.
Okay, short response. Okay, I hope that every attendee brings back a clear sense of something that they can improve next, something they can act on, and a new connection that they can call when they are working through a challenge. So I really think the value of this conference is that it gives attendees that access to expertise, peers, and new ideas.
I love it. And you're right. I think that if you leave a conference like this without at least 2 or 3 new contacts and people that you can just pick up the phone or text or email, maybe you didn't do the conference right. Because at a place like this that's so dedicated to one topic, you're sitting side by side with peers who are doing the exact same production day in and day out. You will meet people. Yeah. You will find people to bounce ideas off of, folks that are asking you for input. It's a great way to set up a good peer network who's dealing with a lot of the same production, same challenges that you are. And that's, like you said early on, that's across the entire business. That's not just propagating a seed geranium. That is running a profitable young plant business. So no, I think that's great. That kind of networking and connectivity is so important. Well, Rachel, I think we're getting to the end. Can you tell the listeners where they can go to learn more about the conference and register?
Sure. So listeners can learn more and register at AmericanHort.org/plug. I want to give just a reminder, Bill, registration includes access to the live conference experience, which includes the education sessions, the trade show, and all of the networking opportunities, as well as the on-demand package of those select sessions that we talked about that will be recorded live at the event. The only additional add-ons, like the tour, is an additional add-on to registration. So the website has all of our latest information on education, all of the information on the production tours, registration, and any other updates that you may need. But people can also reach out directly to our team if they need to.
Awesome. And definitely sign up for the conference, sign up for the tours. And I can vouch that if you just type plug cutting into Google, it's like the first thing that comes up. So
nice.
So you can also find it that way if you don't remember the website, but I will put links to everything in the show notes for this episode. So it's one click away. Yeah. And I wholeheartedly endorse this conference, and we will very excited to cover it for Grower Talks and for our readers as well.
Oh, thank you.
It'll be a lot of fun, for sure.
Thank you, Bill.
Well, and I guess that wraps it up, but I really can't close without giving a huge shout out to American Hort's Cultivate 2026, the event that's coming up in about a month. If you're listening in real time, I know I'm cross-pollinating here. We're talking about another event, but I didn't think you'd mind if I brought this up.
Nope. Staff is 14 days away from being on site. So
that's crazy.
Got that reminder today.
But yeah, it's going to be my 24th time at the show. And
wow.
I mean, every year I know it's going to be exciting. I look forward to catching up with so many of you on the American Hort team. And shout out to all you guys for what you do for our industry.
Oh,
And
thank
thank you
you.
for leading the charge and for being a guest today talking about the Plug and Cutting Conference. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Thanks for thinking of us.
Definitely. And watch Grower Talks for coverage of the conference, for information leading up to it. And definitely go follow American Hort on all their social media, and you will find out everything that's happening around Plug and Cutting Conference and Cultivate. So with that, I am Bill Calkins with Tech on Demand. And on behalf of the entire American Hort team and your friends at Ball Publishing, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Take care out there, and I hope to see you in Philadelphia this September.